We've got a whole lot to get into with these bad boys. In my first impression video of this shoe, I said I thought it was going to solve a lot of my problems I've had with previous Vivo barefoot shoes, and I thought it was the ultimate Swiss Army knife in the barefoot world. So after a month of extensive use, I can say it's a bit like the Tracker boot has had a baby with the Primus Trail knit. You know how sometimes people get lucky and get the good genes from both parents and none of the bad ones? I think that's exactly what's happened here with the Tracker Decons. But is it going to be worth the big chunk of change? Well, these are simply unlike any other Vivo barefoot shoe. I often browse the Vivo site because I love checking out new models and new colorways. I think I have an addiction. A few months ago though, my Vivo barefoot Primus lights were wearing out, and I thought maybe the best solution for me to wear barefoot shoes all year round and for every activity I did was to buy 2 or maybe even 3 pairs of Vivo barefoot shoes. If you didn't already know, I'm a trainer, so I spend a lot of time in the gym. I do some running and some outdoorsy type stuff with the family, but to buy 3 pairs of Vivo barefoot shoes at once would be pretty costly, and that would leave me in the doghouse for weeks. One day, about a month ago though, I was looking at the Vivo site and I noticed these instantly. I mean, instantly. I love how most of the Vivo barefoot shoes look, and I think most of them stand out. But these just look like Vivo barefoot shoes on steroids. Absolutely juiced, jacked up, and pumped. Just look at them, the aesthetic, they just look absolutely incredible. And they're definitely the best looking Vivo barefoot shoe I've ever seen. So I quickly emptied my piggy bank and bought them straight up. It was a tough call between these and the boot version, but given how versatile the low version looked, I just had to have them. Vivo Barefoot on their website claim that these shoes are primarily a hiking shoe, but to be quite honest, I've used them for everything but hiking. This is a pretty unique sole. They have some pretty chunky lugs on here, and I found this is made running on wet tarmac and grass nothing but achievable, and a really nice experience. I probably should have cleaned them, but I have used them extensively. Man, I'm getting everything messy now. So I've done some running in these on mixed terrain to really try and test them, and I know the grip has had mixed reviews, but I'm really happy with the traction on most surfaces. They've been great on grass, tarmac, gravel paths, and that's all been completely fine in both wet and dry conditions. But the only thing I don't think they could stand up to is when it's seriously wet or there's soft ground. I know some people are calling for these to have the Michelin sole on, like the Tracker Forest Escape. Seems to be a bit grippier and a bit superior, but I think this sole does an overall really good job. And unless you're mainly going to be using them for serious hiking, I think the Tracker Michelin soles might be slightly overkill, and you're probably going to get more versatility with the soles on this one. However, comparing the sole on these to my Primus Lights and my Primus Light Trails, I think there's a slight loss in ground feel, and I think that's just down to the amount of rubber on the bottom of these and the depths of the lugs. Obviously, the Primus Lights have a much thinner sole and you can feel the ground much more in these, but I think it's a necessary trade-off if you're looking for something that's geared towards having more grip and being slightly more robust. But if you do want more ground feel, these come with a thermal insole as standard, which to be honest, I absolutely love. But if you do remove it, you get a lot more ground feel and you do feel more connected to the ground. When using these for gym workouts, they have just been nothing but perfect. Super grippy with a nice wide toe box. The lockdown with the wool knit and solid heel counter feels great when lifting and doing any body weight exercises. Now, I've always liked training in my Primus Lights because they're just so flexible and so breathable and have that wide toe box. But these ones go one step further when it comes to that grip and the traction on the gym floor. So I absolutely love training in these or my Primus Lights when it comes to being in the gym. And what I see happening is using the Decons during the winter or when I need some more grip, and using the Primus Lights for the summer for that extra breathability. But I could easily wear these all year round in the gym and they would just feel absolutely awesome. Another thing to note is for any lateral movement or uneven surfaces, the knurling and the grip wrapping around more of the shoe gives it an even more superior grip than any other Primus models that I've used before for those kind of lateral movements and uneven ground. What about the peely sole issue I've had with other models? If you haven't seen, I've had an issue a little bit where the sole would peel away from the upper at the toe bend, and I've actually had to glue these ones back together. But I can say so far, these ones have completely solved that problem for me. And I've never been so excited by an additional little bit of stitching. You can see that they're stitched all around the sole. So I think the sole is glued and stitched to the upper, making them much more solid, robust, durable. One major concern I had when I got these was how stiff everything is. The sole, the upper, and the heel counter is a lot stiffer than any of the other Vivo Barefoot shoes I've had in the past. If you look at my Primus Lights, it's really soft material absolutely everywhere. Even at the heel, it can just squish down. It's just all really quite soft material. Whereas compared to these, this is really quite a stiff material. It takes a lot more effort to kind of crunch it up. And I know some of you guys in the comments below have said there's been some heel rub going on, which reminds me a little bit of when I bought the Nike Vaporflies for running. The most expensive shoes I've ever bought, and they're meant to be faster than any other shoe on the market, but the heel just gave me mad blisters. So it's all well and good having a great shoe, the fastest shoe, but if it's not comfortable and it's causing you problems, you're just not going to wear them and they're not going to be useful. So we'll get onto sizing in a minute, which I think is going to be super important, and we'll compare them to my other shoes. But first, I have to say, I haven't experienced any heel rub whatsoever, even with the stiff heels of these. And it actually feels really nice locking everything down in place while still being much more flexible than any other normal shoe or gym shoe that I've had in the past. And it probably adds extra durability to have that stiffness and robustness. So the heel counter gets a massive thumbs up from me for running, for daily wear, for gym use, for walking, and for pumpkin picking. Now I have to be completely honest with you, the upper being so stiff was problematic. I was getting a pinch every time I bent at the toe box right here, which for a shoe designed to be barefoot, flexible and freeing, it was pretty worrying, especially after spending so much on them. I persisted though because I really liked everything else about this shoe, and I really wanted to give them a test and a proper try and give them the benefit of the doubt. And luckily I did, because the more and more I wore them, the upper material got more and more supple and it started to mold to my feet. And for the last 3 months, that issue has completely disappeared. There's no pinching at all whatsoever. They feel super comfortable. They just need to be worn in much more than other models. The biggest takeaway from this though is I can't stress how important it is to get the sizing right, because with the stiffer heel and the overall shoe, these are less forgiving and you might be more prone to rubbing and blisters if you do get it wrong. They are, however, absolutely amazing if the fit is right, and I can say for everything I've personally used them for, they've been great. Hands down the best Vivo Barefoot shoe I've ever had. And just quickly, when it comes to hiking, I think they would be great for short hikes or hikes in warmer conditions, but longer, more testing hikes, you're probably better off getting a boot version. Now, comparing these to other shoes that I have, cycling shoes, running shoes, Vans, lifting shoes, Vivo Barefoot shoes for me have always been a size below other shoes. So a lot of these shoes here are a size 46 Euro, and my Vivo Barefoot shoes are 44. Now what I will say, all of my Vivo Barefoot shoes are the same size. So in terms of Vivo Barefoot, they seem true to size, but they do run slightly smaller compared to other brands I've found anyway. So these cycling shoes, for example, they're a 46, a 10.5. My running shoes are a 46, a 10.5 UK, whereas my Vivo Barefoot shoes are a size 44, which I think is a size 10 UK. It's definitely worth using Vivo Barefoot's size guide, and if you're not sure, it might be worth buying 2 pairs, 2 sizes to try at home and sending back the ones that don't fit so well. Which brings me nicely to the laces and the eyelets. Now I wouldn't be surprised if, like me, you're a little bit concerned with the laces and the eyelets on these, because for a shoe that's designed for rough terrains, to only have 3 eyelets for the laces, I thought was pretty weird. But weirdly, since I've got them, I've not had to tighten down the laces at all, even when running. I put this down to the wool knit and the sock fitting and the strong heel counter, just locking everything down on its own and not really requiring me to tie up the laces much at all. Or maybe they just fit my feet really well, but it's clear from the design they didn't feel the need to add too much lacing, And from my experience, that's actually worked really well. But what about the weathering? Let's discuss the big topic of water resistance and warmth. They're simply not waterproof. If I go out 30 minutes to an hour and there's some light rain and the ground and the grass is a bit wet, they do pretty well at keeping my feet dry and warm. But if there's lots of downpour and water starts to sit on them, then my feet get absolutely soaked. But what do you expect? In VIVOBAREFOOT'S defense, that's always going to be the case if you're getting a breathable shoe. So it just depends on what you want. If you really need some waterproofing, there might be better options out there. But for light water resistance, they do a good job, better than a normal shoe. I do, however, absolutely love the thermal regulation. These have kept my feet at a really good temperature a lot of the time, and I'm really looking forward to wearing these in even colder conditions. They do a much better job than any of my previous Vivo shoes, including the all-weather Primus lights, which are also meant to keep your feet warm. So, despite being so expensive, these are probably going to save me some money because they're so versatile that I probably don't need to buy any other VIVOBAREFOOT shoes. I don't need the VIVOBAREFOOT boots, and they're probably going to last longer than any of my other models because of how they're made, with the really strong traction, the robust rubber, the strong wildhide leather, the strong heel counter, and the nice stitched sole. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they stand up over the long term. Now, in part 3 of this review series, I'll really go over the long-term use and the durability, so hopefully I'll see you for that.